Well, hey there, sweet peas. Welcome back to Friendless. I'm your host, James Avramenko, and it is my birth week. So, you know what that means. It's time for the annual, oh my god, how did I get this old? Where did these wrinkles come from? Jesus Christ, I can feel my body rotting as I speak. Retrospective. I'm turning 38 this week. Let's get into it. Lean back, get comfy, set your volume at a reasonable level, and enjoy my birth week celebration here on Friendless. So, right at the hop, I gotta admit, I have a contentious relationship with my birthday. Longtime listeners are probably familiar. Every year, my birthday rolls around, and I feel this kind of like internal tension around like, on one half, I'm like, I love presents and I love being celebrated and I love people like literally have to be nice to me, right? For one day of the year, you have to be nice to me. And I love that. On the other hand, most of my birthdays have been, and this is not me trying to like, play the world's smallest violin, but they don't tend to be all that great. There's just a lot of tension, a lot of anxiety. Growing up as a kid, my birthdays were just rampant with tension and I would always have these like what I look back on now and realize are like these like autistic overloaded crash outs, but became kind of legendary stories in my former friend groups. So I don't have the best associations with birthdays, but every year it comes around, and I think to myself, I'm gonna give it another shot. I'm gonna kick that can one more time. One thing that I have started doing in the most recent years, in the last couple of years, is instead of doing kind of like a New Year's resolution, because who the fuck starts a new behavior or habit in the middle of winter? Sociopathic. Instead, I like to sort of set my intentions and set my resolutions for around my birthday. Even then, I go real gentle. Like, this is not like, this year I'm gonna land on the moon, like, this is like, this year I'm gonna try and be a little bit nicer to myself, just a little bit more from last year, kind of thing. And I thought what I would do to sort of put some of these thoughts and these resolutions in place is to kind of generate a series of questions that I would reflect on and kind of answer on the show. I thought it would be an opportunity for not only for me to kind of get my thoughts out of me, but also to kind of share where I'm at with you listeners. So I came up with a long list of questions. I'll try to get through as many of them as can, as honestly as I can. But yeah, I guess where I'll start is kind of like, who am I now compared to who I was a year ago? So I'm going to kind of try and walk through some of the highlights of the past year and what some of those taught me. So I think the biggest thing that I learned over the course of the last year is how to kind of extricate my personal self-worth from my work. I had noticed myself really sinking into these pits of, if my boss doesn't validate me and if I don't like the work I'm doing, then I must be worthless, and if I'm not producing this podcast consistently week in, week out, and promoting it and making content and growing and getting new viewers and getting new followers and da 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 and all these vanity metric bullshit. If I wasn't doing those things, then I was telling myself I was a failure. And something I really worked on this year was to just kind of lean back and enjoy it, and to recognize that when I do the work that I enjoy, the quality of it doesn't really matter. I'm not the best at anything, and I'm also not the worst at anything. And my objective is not to do my best. My objective is just to do what I can that day. I've been trying to kind of, you're familiar with, I've been trying to kind of, alter a lot of my sort of interior phrasing. And another one of these kind of common statements that I'm trying to really clock is anytime I or somebody else says, well, do your best. Like, no, I'm just going to do what I can. and that's going to be good enough. That's my objective, is basically just to do my good enough, because I feel like if I'm always expected to push to the best, to the absolute limits at all times, that's where the crash out comes in. So I'm not interested in my best. I know I can do great work. I know I can do high quality work. Is it the best? No, and I don't want it to be. So I think that's really one of the reframes that I've been focusing on this year, is doing my good enough. Another piece of that has been this idea of, circling around the idea of the show, is this idea of how do I show up within community. For years now, and I continue to work on this, but for years now, I often will find myself um, sitting back, not communicating, and wondering why nobody texts me. And look, part of that is other people's responsibility. Part of that is I tend to have friends who are just god awful texters, who don't remember. Most of my friends have no object permanence, so if I'm not in front of them, they don't really remember that I exist, and that's cool. That's fine. Um, um, but something that I've really been trying to take responsibility for is, if I want to see my friends, if I want to hang out, if I want a community, if I want a connection, I want to be the one to forge that connection, to reach out, to set up, a hangout, or a something to do, right? And yeah, it takes a lot of energy, and it's exhausting. And there are times where I'm just like, fuck, could someone else just text me, please? Like, can I be baby tonight? But at the end of the day, what I've come to really center around that idea is that it is part of my values to be in community, and it is part of my values to be active and participating within that community. And so, yes, there are days where it takes more energy than others, and that's just what it is. The way Scott always frames it is your hunger varies, but you're always going to be hungry. So sometimes you have to put in a little bit more effort. Sometimes you don't want to eat, but you have to, right? Because that's part of the system. And so I think that's another piece, is just recognizing and celebrating that I am trying to build community, and I'm trying to be the active participant, and also, subtweet, like, invite me out to shit, you know. The next question is this idea of, circling to the idea of birthdays. Do birthdays feel different now than they did when they're younger? Of course, because they matter less. When you're a kid, it's like, you've only had 5 birthdays, so like it's monumental. By the time you're turning 38, it's like I can't even. Most of the year I have spent trying to remember how old I am. Even now, saying 38, I'm like, I'm not totally sure that's right. I think it's right, but I can't. I'm good at other things. Math is not my strong suit, and so like it just doesn't feel like it matters all that much. As I said in the intro, obviously it's really nice to have people be nice to you for a day. It's nice to get messages and all those things, but at the same time, it's like I find it's just kind of another day most of the time, and I also do kind of low key. I'm a little suspicious of people who are still like really invested in their birthdays into their like 30s and 40s. It's kind of like, grow up, you know? Which kind of leads into the another question of what surprises you the most, or what surprised you the most about getting older. I think I've talked about this a little bit in the past, and I've definitely written about it. So it's this idea that I didn't realize that I was always going to feel just like me. And the sort of interior me is kind of ageless. They're always, the interior me is always a little bit younger than I think I am. And remembers so much so vividly. Um, and I've often equated like getting older is just about having more things to remember. Um, and I'm sure there'll come a day where I start to forget things. There's a long line of dementia and other brain related things in both my bloodlines. So I'm sure there will come a day where it starts to get hazy and I start being crazy old Uncle Jimmy, but that day has not come. And for me, getting older has been about realizing that when you're young and you kind of talk to older people, you see them as like ancient, but they just see themselves as themselves. And now that I'm on the other side of it, it's like I don't feel like I'm almost 40. I don't know what I feel like. I just feel like me. And maybe it's because I've kind of detached myself from the pressure of like, I'm 38. I should have done this and this and this. Like I tried that. I tried getting married. I tried having a life. It sucked. It left me with deep trauma, to use the parlance. But like, um, I don't believe in the like the ladder of life, and that at a certain age you should have done this, and at a certain age you should have done that. Like, who gives a fuck? So maybe it's my own personal detachment from age, but maybe I think it's more about that how you feel inside is not a reflection of how many years you've been on Earth. Um, and I think it is something you don't really truly learn until you've experienced it, which is that as you age, you don't really feel older. Like you might feel, more sore, but you don't necessarily feel older. I think that sort of that wisdom that comes with age, the privilege of aging, the privilege of getting old is something that you don't really realize until you're in it, right? And last piece of this sort of reflection is this question of what's one thing that you let go of this year? And I was trying to kind of, without going really into detail, I think a big piece of what I worked on releasing this year is the desire that I've held in the past for justice, the desire for what I thought was justice, but really was manifesting as retribution, and just deciding to just kind of like let bygones be bygones and let people who treated me poorly be, and not hold on to these resentments, not hold on to this anger, and just kind of like let them live, because the fact of the matter is, whether they're going to show it publicly, whether they're going to show it even privately, whether they're ever going to express it to anyone but themselves, someone who's done something really shitty knows that they've done something really shitty. Whether they admit it or not doesn't matter. You know when you've done something shitty. And so what I've come to realize is that the prison of having made that choice is all the justice that I'll personally ever need. Um, I don't have to live with that. I mean, I have to live with the consequences of their behavior, but I don't have to live with the knowledge that I could do, XYZ to someone else. I can live comfortably knowing I've never made choices like that. And so I think I've really let go of this desire for retribution, masquerading as justice. All right. Well, let's move into some nittier, grittier stuff. Friendless kind of wouldn't be friendless if I wasn't talking about the weirdness, the grief, the sort of unexpected lessons of lost friendships. Because fact of the matter is, not every friendship makes it to the next birthday. Not every connection makes it to the next birthday. The people I was celebrating my birthday with last year are no longer in my life. And that's a strange thing to reconcile with. And there are moments where I feel a sadness about that, and then there's moments where I feel a gratitude. Not only that they were in my life, but that they're not anymore. Yikes! But so the first question here was, who was a friend you didn't expect to lose but did? And I've chewed on this one all day, because I really don't want to name names, and it has bit me in square in the ass in the past when I've tried to be too vague to try and sort of protect other people's identity and their own shit. But then like other people have then started assuming that I was talking about them, and then I've gotten in trouble. It's been a whole fucking thing. So I'm gonna try and steer around this story with what's the word I'm looking for? Diplomacy? I don't know. But I had a group of friends that I was kind of, I would say, tangentially connected to for years from university, and and I would kind of float in and out of it, and then a few of them started going down the really intense kind of what I call sort of like the MRA route, the anti-trans, very vocal, very, Joe Rogan pilled, just brain rot. And I started getting into some pretty heated arguments with them. And it got to the point where it wasn't even like a big, huge blow up thing. There had been a few fights, and then somebody in one of the kind of group chats made just like a really, in retrospect, a really harmless and a really pretty benign statement that just like was kind of the straw on the camel's back for me. And I was the one who just like totally just kind of froze people out. And I don't regret that, is the thing. I've talked many times in previous episodes about different ways to end relationships, different ways to mend them. Um, and I often try to advocate for communication and for connection and for these kinds of things. But in retrospect, I really don't regret just stepping away and letting them live, because the reality is that not a single one of them reached out to ask what happened. Not a single one texted to say, "Hey, what's going on? How are you doing?" Right? And so that was sort of all the proof I needed. And I think it's really important to have connections that are challenging. I think it's really important to have community members who don't fundamentally, intrinsically align with every single thing that you believe. And I think it's also really important to not have people whose personal and political views threaten the safety of yourself and your other community members. You don't have to welcome in people who don't see you as human. you know, so I thought I would feel worse about that decision than I, in retrospect, do. Um, Leads into this next question of what's something that a former friend taught you that still sticks with you, and I don't think that it's any sort of like singular lesson so much as I think often about all the little quirks of my day that are influenced by what other people did and what other people showed me. Having a little dish towel by my bathroom sink to wipe up the water, so that it doesn't get like hard water spills. Um, I think about my friend who taught me how to shave in junior high. It was just three junior high boys in a bathroom with a Gillette Mach 5, totally unnecessary. And we obviously just like chopped our faces up. But I think about literally every time I shave against the grain, I think about that friend. I think about the friend who taught me to fill up a bunch of water bottles and put them in the fridge so that they're extra cold, and you don't have to waste your time waiting for the sink to cool down. I think about the friend who taught me how to play Settlers of Catan. I think about the friends who taught me how to hang art on my wall with pushpins instead of needing nails. I think about songs that remind me of different eras of my life. I think about specific movies that I used to watch with certain friends, and it just, I guess, like I say, it's not, I don't feel like I am a singular being. I feel like I am a collection of all the people who have come into my life and touched me in different moments, um, appropriately and inappropriately. um, but who have offered their perspective on things, and that has completely altered the way I show up in the world. Which takes me into this question of: have you ever wanted to reach out to an old friend but didn't, and why? All the time, all the time. There are people who I would love to reach out to and reconnect with and just see how they're doing. There's people I saw at the Pride event 2 weeks ago that I wanted to say hello to, but I was terrified. There's people from my past who I'd love to speak to, but I'm terrified because I am afraid of being rejected. Right? It was hard enough losing them one time. I don't want to reach out and then either just get completely frozen out again, as has happened, or to get told to go fuck myself or whatever it might be, And so it feels safer to just keep them in the past and keep them as memories. I reached out. I actually did do this. I reached out to a friend earlier this year who I'd lost contact with a couple years ago, and I just said, hey, I'm thinking about you. I was at a teen angst show, and they had been the person who had brought me to my first teen angst, and so I just wrote to them and said, hey, I'm thinking about you, and it was really strange because that night they were really friendly and they were like, hey, thinking about you, and then the next day they had blocked me again on Instagram and never messaged me again. So I was just sort of like, oh, okay, I guess I'll go fuck myself. So that kind of rattled me and made me think, maybe it is better to just kind of let sleeping dogs lie sometimes, right? The last piece of this is this idea of what's one myth about friendship that you've debunked in your own life. These questions are hilarious. I actually sat down with I got ChatGPT to generate these questions. I think they're fucking hilarious. But so, what's one myth about friendship that I've debunked? I think that friends. Um, I don't believe in the friendship that enables you. I don't believe in the friendship that is always there to say, "Yes, queen, you're right, they're wrong." I don't want enablers as friends. I want friends who are going to push back. I want friends who are going to give their perspective. I want friends who are going to tell me I'm wrong. I want friends who are going to have hard conversations with me and speak honestly and authentically when I fuck up, not just like villainize me and block me out. Um, so I think that's the danger of a lot of types of friendship where it's like they're your bestie in great easy times and then they disappear in hard times. And I think that's a product of this like always down type friendship, because there's no room for conflict, there's no room for mistakes, there's no room for friction. It has to be all easy or it can't exist. So I think for me it's about not having those friends who are that dumb Hallmark card that's like a friend will help you kill your ex-husband but a best friend will bury the body or whatever the fuck the joke is, and it's like, no, that's horseshit. Your best friend would be like, let's get out of town. Let's create new identities and let's go do I don't know, I'm just riffing here, but let's I don't believe in that kind of yes ending escalation and that sort of like no critical thinking around the connection or around the behavior. I'm really flying through these questions. I thought this episode was going to be longer, but I think I'm just gonna keep the momentum rolling. I want to kind of wrap this reflection up on a lighter note. I want to talk about kind of looking forward, um, because my intention is to always continue growing, to always continue imagining what I could be doing next, hoping for the future, and just kind of leaning into that sort of pragmatic hope that I think I try to embody. Um, so I got a couple questions here about sort of going forward. The first one here is if you could send a birthday invite to anyone, even someone you're not friends with anymore, who would it be and why? Um, I would love to invite my like very, very first preschool friend, Nick, to a birthday party. I haven't seen him since high school. We weren't friends in high school. We were friends. We were little kids, and then went to the same high school, but weren't friends, and haven't spoken since. 20 odd years later. And I would love to send him an invite to a party of any kind, but birthday especially, and just kind of like see how he's doing. I don't have him on any social media, so I don't know how I would even get a hold of him. But yeah, Nick, if you're out there, I love you, and I hope you're well. And yeah, someday having a birthday with him would just be absolutely magic. What would you tell next year you if you could send them a birthday message? It would be oh, I don't know. It would be, hey, put your pants on. I don't know. What do anyone? I hope you're not dead. Like I hope this message finds you able-bodied and not in a ditch somewhere. I hope you're still sober. That would be great. I don't know. That one of those thoughts, those future thoughts, they always freak me out because I always feel like they're kind of tempting fate. Uh, it's probably just the because of who my mother was that I have this very morbid sense of dread around everything. But I remember there's that Beatles song that's like 63 or whatever. Would you still love me? Would you still something when I'm 63? Every time that song came on, my mom would say, "Well, he didn't make it to 63." And it's just like that kind of like just morbid, dark. And so I always think when you're making those kinds of pledges, it's you're setting yourself up to become God's punchline. Uh, but that being said, the next question is, what do you want to feel more of this year? And I think that's a more generalized. I think I like that idea more. Like, what do I want to feel more of? I want to feel more connected. I want to feel more connected to myself. I want to feel more connected to my core group of friends. I want to be more active in my friends, and I want to participate more. I want to be. I want to feel like I am getting outside more often. I want to feel more satisfied in my personal work, in my art, in my creativity, in what I put out in the world. I want to feel like I am on a trajectory that is not financially growing. I mean, look, we live in a capitalist hellscape. We need money to survive. So I think a piece of it is I would like financial security, but it's more about I would like to grow a deeper sense of satisfaction in my output. That's not about consistency, just about like I want to put more elbow grease into the work, and I want to get some of this work off my plate. I have books and books and books and books and books of poetry and short fiction and all this stuff that is just dying to get published, and I just can't get my head out of my ass to edit it and then submit it or self-publish it or whatever. So I think I want to feel a satisfaction knowing that I got some of that off of my plate. And lastly, if Friendless could evolve into anything this year, what would you want that to look like? And this is another tricky one because, I have my sort of like cockamamie blue sky dreams of like, I would love to do this podcast full time. I would love for it to catch on and grow, and I would love to be able to expand the output. I'd love to be able to put out more consistent episodes. I'd love to have bigger guests. I'd love to have more dedicated, research time to some of the deeper miniseries and topics that I want to dive into. I'd love more time to create surrounding content. I think really what it is I'd like to grow a team. I'd like to grow a support system for the show. Something that I've learned in my day job is this idea of like, you can't have one person teams. If you're trying to grow a product or you're trying to grow a service or whatever it might be, you can't just lump everything on one person and say, hey, go do all of social media or whatever it is. I've tried to enlist help here and there. The problem is that all that ends up happening is, there's a massive workload on me that I end up just kind of shuffling over onto this other person, and they don't do it because it's too much work. And I'm like, yeah, buddy, I get it. So I think it's more about like, I think I'd like to grow like a team of people who would be willing to put in the work to help grow this show. I need help with social media. I need help with promotion. I need help with editing. I need help with guest relations. Like there's a lot of elements of the show that I'm doing myself, and I'm doing good enough, but I want to improve and I want to refine it and I want to grow. So I guess if if I could speak to a year from now, Friendless, my hope would be that I would have a community in the show that is then kind of growing its place in the kind of podcast ecosystem. So yeah, that's kind of those are the wrap up questions. I'm trying to think if there was anything else I wanted to slip in. But honestly, I think that's kind of it. I just wanted to say hi. I didn't want to take up lots of people's time. I just wanted to make sure I got something out here and just kind of rambled for a little bit. I hope some of these ideas, some of these thoughts were insightful. If you wanted to be a part of the Friendless team, why not reach out? Why not let me know what are your rates? Because I have no money to spend, but we could figure something out. Anyway, that's a sidebar. Yeah, my actual birthday is on August 24th. Message me, be nice. At FriendlessPod on Instagram, TikTok. You can email me, friendlesspod@gmail.com. Send me a little message. Wish me a happy birthday, goddammit. And as is required by law, we all know this, it is a law that if you have a crush on me, you are required to tell me on my birthday. So I'm just putting that out in the world, because if you don't tell me, you're going to the clink, okay? You're going away for a long time, big boy. Anyway, I'm going to wrap this up here. Just want to say thank you. Thank you so much for listening through. Thanks for kind of spending a bit of my birthday with me. Whether you're a stranger, whether you're a listener, whether you're somebody who used to know me, whether you're somebody who knows me now, I want you to know that this show exists because of you. So thank you. Thank you for, being a part of my life, and thanks for letting me be a part of yours. But let's wrap things up here. Thank you one more time for listening. I will catch you back here next week with a brand new interview. It's amazing. I cannot wait to share this one. I actually have a world exclusive song that's coming with the episode, so stay tuned for that. I hope you will be here with me next week. But as always, hey, I'm not going to worry about that right now, and neither should you, because that is then and this is now. So for now, I'm just going to say I love you and I wish you well. Fun and safety, sweet peas.